I still remember the day the doctor said the word, cancer. It wasn't just a word, it was a storm that ripped through the walls of our world. My wife, Mia, squeezed my hand so tightly her knuckles turned white. I stared at the floor, feeling the ground vanish beneath me. We'd been married 12 years, 12 beautiful, ordinary years. We weren't rich, but we had dreams, a little home in the suburbs, a garden she adored, a car we'd bought together, and a future we thought was safe. But in that one moment, all of it turned into collateral damage. The treatments were expensive, far beyond what our insurance would cover. $290,000. I remember staring at that number as if it were a death sentence. Mia told me not to worry, but I could see the fear hiding behind her brave smile. So, I did what any husband would do. I sold everything. The house, gone. The car, gone. My tools, my watch, the small shop I'd built from scratch, gone. Even my wedding ring, the one thing I swore I'd never take off. I pawned it for a fraction of its worth. Every sale hurt like tearing off pieces of myself, but I told myself, it's just money. Because what's the value of a house when the person you love is slipping away? For months, our life became hospitals and hope. I'd sit beside her through chemo, holding her hand, counting every hair that fell, whispering lies like, you're going to be fine, even when the doctors stopped saying it. Some nights, I cried in the car. I didn't want her to see me break. Then one morning, after her second major surgery, she opened her eyes and whispered, you didn't have to give up everything for me. I smiled and said, I'd give up the world if it meant I'd get to keep you. She smiled weakly. Promise me one thing, she said. If I don't make it, don't let this ruin you. Live again. But I refused to accept that kind of talk. Months later, the treatment started working. The scans showed improvement. I felt like we were finally winning. I began taking extra shifts, rebuilding what little I could. We even talked about renting a small place by the lake, starting over, together. Then, one rainy night, her fever spiked. By the time I got her to the ER, she was unconscious. The infection spread too fast. She never woke up. I remember the hospital corridor, silent, sterile, cruel. The doctor's voice sounded far away. My whole world collapsed in a single breath. I went home to an empty apartment, our pictures still on the wall, her scarf on the chair. I sat there until morning, staring at her handwriting on a note she'd left me. If you're reading this, it means I couldn't keep my promise to stay. But you kept yours. You loved me past fear, past pain. And that love, it's enough. I didn't move for days. I had nothing left, no house, no savings, no ring. Just her memory and a mountain of debt. People told me I was foolish for selling everything. That I should have saved something for myself. But they didn't understand. She was my everything. Years passed. I worked odd jobs, saved every penny. I didn't rebuild for a long time, maybe because I didn't want to live in a world she wasn't part of. But then one afternoon, while volunteering at a cancer center, I met a young man sitting beside his wife's bed. He looked terrified, just like I once did. He told me he didn't know how he'd pay for her treatment. He was thinking of giving up. I reached into my pocket and handed him an envelope. Inside was $5,000, all I had managed to save that year. He looked at me in shock. "Why are you doing this?" he asked. I smiled softly. Because someone once taught me that love isn't about what you keep, it's about what you give. He cried. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel broken. I felt her. A few weeks later, I visited the old pawn shop where I'd sold my wedding ring. The owner, an old man, remembered me. He reached under the counter and pulled out a small box. "I kept it," he said quietly. "Something told me you'd come back for it." I opened the box, and there it was, the same gold band, scratched, dull, but real. I held it in my hands, tears blurring my vision. It wasn't just a ring. It was proof of sacrifice, love, and a promise that outlasted even death. Now, every year on her birthday, I visit the lake we once dreamed of living by. I toss a single rose into the water and whisper, "We made it, Mia. You're still here, in everything I do." People sometimes say I lost too much. That love shouldn't cost you everything. But they're wrong. Because I didn't lose, I loved. And that love was worth every dollar, every tear, and every piece of my heart I gave away.